Hello and welcome back. We have another repetition of the dance by Nicolas Laoureux today. It's in C major, remember? But it modulates to G major. So in the middle you have some F sharps. Yeah. Towards the end we go back to where we began. So it modulates back to C major. Yeah, modulating means to go from one key to another. Yeah. The piece is written in 3/4, which means there's 3/4 notes per beat, per bar, yeah. But each beat isn't equally important. The reason the 3/4 lends itself so much for dances is because the fact that the 3/4 bar has one heavy beat and two light beats. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and that's why so many dancers use the 3/4 time signature. Yeah, even when we practice it slow as we do, keep in mind that the first beat of each bar is the most important one. Secondly, I want to talk briefly about the bowing. Because we're at some point going to hopefully play this quite fast, yeah, so it feels like a dance, and quite light, because dances don't tend to be really heavy in the music, it tends to be quite light. You don't want to use a whole bow for every single note. Yeah, I suggest you use the upper half, for example. You can try the entire piece at the lower half as well, but it's not as light. Yeah, so this means that when you have these minims, these half notes and the dotted minims, yeah, the 3 beat notes, you have to make sure that you don't end up in a completely different part of the bow than you were before, because as we've seen before, playing something at the heel or playing something at the tip sounds, unless you compensate a lot, very different. And then if you want the contrast, of course, then you just move to a different part of the bow, and it solves sometimes a lot of the problems. But in this case, we don't want massive contrasts. At least I wouldn't suggest you make massive contrasts. So I do suggest that you, when you play a minim or the dotted minim, yeah, you reduce the bow speed so you don't go too far from where you were. Yeah. So let's say the first couple of bars has 2 minims in it, so it's that first note of the second bar. Don't bow equally fast, because then you'll end up at the heel. So sorry, slow, normal, and slow again. So don't use too much bow, because later on, if you're going to speed it up and you practice it going with whole bows, you're going to realize that a lot of the work was useless, because you can't play it fast and with a whole bow on every single note. So keep that in mind. Yeah. Anyway, we're at 60 only so far. Condense the bowing. Yeah. Here we go. Straight in. 1, 2, 3. So that's it. Bit by bit it will sound more and more like a dance and less like an exercise. But here you can also already start paying attention to the bow division. Yeah. Of course, if you want to go louder somewhere and you want to go more towards the heel, which I did, for example, halfway in the G major part, you can let the bow run on those longer notes, but you have to be aware that you have to make your way back to where you were by the time you go back to the A accent, the ending section, where we go back to the original theme in C major. Yeah, so at least the opening and the ending use the same part of the bow and therefore will sound very similar. Yeah, treat it as a piece, not just as an exercise. Okay, I'll see you.